The last video of the year, on the last day of the year. What better time to look back at 2022, talk a little bit about what happened, and this year I've decided to do my top 5 images, a countdown from 5 to 1 of my favourite images that I've managed during the past year. I hope you'll enjoy the video. If you do and you're new here, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. But the year is almost over, and if you're anything like me, you're probably wondering, where did that year go? It seemed to go by so fast. Although I will say that one of the things that I will remember 2022 for is we had here the longest and hottest summer since records began. And boy did we feel it. It was actually really quite difficult to do anything or go anywhere just because of the heat and how long the summer lasted. But I said I was going to do my top 5 images from this year, and I'm going to kick off with my number 5 image, which was actually shot right at the beginning of the year, so long before that long hot summer hit us. I was actually out doing a video about wanting to do more handheld photography. And it was while I was doing that I came across a scene that I've passed loads of times before, but there was something about it on that particular day that appealed to me. And I decided to get the telephoto lens on the camera, and I was shooting handheld, so I did a handheld shot of the scene. And although it's not the most colourful, the most vibrant, the most dramatic, the most moody, it's not the most of anything perhaps image, there is something about the way all of the elements come together, the light, the shape of the hills, even the birds in the water in the foreground, that I still really like. It appealed to me at the time, it still appeals to me now, and that's why I've got it in here as my number 5 image in my top 5 for 2022. One of the things I'd planned to do in 2022 was more urban photography, more photography in town, either in old towns or in the old parts of some towns, or maybe even in the new parts of towns, but just doing something a bit different to the normal sort of seascapes and landscapes. Now, because of the long hot summer, I didn't do as much as I would have liked, although I did manage a few trips and got some images I was quite happy with. But it was actually on the very last one of those that I did only a few weeks ago that I got the number 4 image in my top 5. I'd actually been out doing some photography in an old town called Finestrat, and I was on my way back to the car, passing through a little park, when I spotted this big hand sculpture sitting over like a little pond. And I realised there was a possibility of an image there as the sun was setting. Bit of a rush to get, but I got an image that I was really pretty happy with. The colours weren't great, particularly in the water, and I decided black and white was a much more striking effect for this particular image. And I like it because it's different. I love the way the sun is, just peeking through the bottom of the hand there. The lines and textures in the hand and the reflections. It's certainly not a traditional landscape image, but I really like it, and that's why it's in my hit parade at number 4. This year I've also been able to play around with some gear. Now, K&F Concept, that I've been collaborating with for the last couple of years, sent me through some interesting things to try out, some of which I'm continuing to use to this very day. The bag, a tripod, and some of the filters. I also got my old Nikon DSLR out of retirement. For those of you who don't know, I have a Nikon D810 full frame DSLR. Last year, 2021, at the beginning of the year, I kind of put it into retirement because carrying heavy gear was causing me a lot of back problems. This year I decided to bring it out of retirement and use it when I wasn't walking very far, doing, kind of short walks from the car or from home. And I really enjoyed getting it back out again. Now, unfortunately, I only got to use it a few times, and then the mount on one of the lenses, on the telephoto lens, broke. And I've kind of decided to put it back into retirement for the time being, till I decide what I want to do in the future. But while I was out using that camera on one of my early morning trips with that camera setup, I actually managed to capture my number 3 image in my top 5. It was another coastal scene. It's a little sort of small beach or cove with a big rock on it, and we ended up with a glorious sunrise, really beautiful colours, and I shot a number of different compositions to make the best of that. And although I liked a lot of them, this one I think is my favourite. I like the beautiful sky, which is shown off by the vertical orientation, shows plenty of the sky. The big rock creates a nice frame at the bottom, and there's just all those little items of interest going on in the background with a boat. There's a fish farm there, and of course the land in the background. Definitely had to be colour, this one, and even though it was shot in the middle of summer, which is not traditionally my best time to get really nice images, I really like this one, and it's number 3 in my top 5. I had a little bit of a play with some more creative options as well this year. I had another go at ICM with a bit more success, I think, than my first attempt the previous year. I also played around with different ways of doing infrared or infrared effect, using filters in the field and also using Photoshop to create an infrared effect. And while I think ICM is something I might have another go at over the coming months, I'm not entirely convinced that infrared is for me, but it was certainly fun to try. Back on to my top 5 images, and I have to say the battle for the top spot was a close one. 2 very, very different images. One colour, one black and white. One short exposure, one long exposure. One shot in the morning, one shot in the evening. One a horizontal composition and one a vertical composition. And it really was a difficult choice for me to choose between these 2, as in fact it was a difficult choice for me to choose my top 5. But in the end, I made my decision, and in the number 2 spot is an image that I shot on, it's another coastal scene. It's an image that I shot in a place called Altea. I'd been exploring around a beach, and I really noticed the clouds, the way the cloud patterns were forming, and I really felt there was a nice long exposure black and white to be had here. So ND filters came out, and this is the image that I got. Now, on the face of it, this is a very simple composition, but if you actually look closely, there's lots of detail in there as well. I love the way that the water coming up over the sort of pebbles on the beach has created this kind of almost scalloped effect. I love the symmetry between the patterns in the foreground and the cloud shapes in the background. And I love the if you like, the contrasts that I've been able to get by going to black and white with this. It was very, very close between this and my number 1 image, but I decided in the end this one was going to be my number 2. And I think I'll stand by it. Another day I might choose differently, but I think I stand by it today. We're almost there. We're almost at my number 1 image, my favourite image of 2022. But just before we get there, I said how difficult it was to choose between my first image, my number 1 and my number 2 image. But it was actually really difficult to choose 5 out of some of the images that I've shot this year that I really, really like. So I thought I'd just do a little slideshow, some honourable mentions, images that I considered, but in the end decided they weren't quite in my top 5. So this is it, my number 1 image, my favourite image of 2022. It was shot just down the coast here, walking distance from home, early in the morning, and I was using a technique I called long and low. So it's using a long lens, telephoto lens, to keep things in the background looking large, but using a low point of view so that I could also have things in the foreground looking quite large. Obviously this meant focus stacking. It also meant wading out into a rock pool to get the composition that I wanted. But it turned out to be a gorgeous morning for colour, and this is my number 1 image, my favourite image of 2022. I love the detail in this, I love the colours in this, I love the reflections in the water, the reflected colours in the water, the reflections of the big rock in the water. It's a short exposure, a long exposure could have also worked, but I was going for a short exposure on this, and I think it worked. I don't think it needed a long exposure. And I think one of the things that convinced me that this should be the image I chose as my favourite image for 2022 is that I had a large metal print made of it to hang on the wall. So I must like it. So that's it, my top 5 images and some honourable mentions for 2022. Now, I've done this for 2 reasons. One is I just wanted to share that with you in a video, but also I encourage you to do the same thing. Go back over your work for the year and pick out your favourite images. It doesn't have to be 5, it can be 1, it can be 5, it can be 10, it can be 25, it doesn't matter. But look at the images that you like the best and then try to understand what it is you like about them so that you can consider that in future shoots. It's a worthwhile exercise. Now, it's the end of the year, New Year's Eve, and I would like to take this opportunity not only to wish you a very happy new year, but also to thank everybody that has supported this channel in 2022. I really do appreciate every watch, every like, every share, every comment, and of course every subscriber. And I hope you'll continue to join me for my photography in 2023, and I hope I'll be able to continue entertaining, maybe instructing, I don't know, depends on you I guess. But I hope you'll continue to enjoy the videos anyway. As I said, I want to wish you a very, very happy new year. And I also want to thank you for watching this video. You know the routine probably. Likes, shares and comments are really appreciated. If you've enjoyed this video and you're new here, you want to see what else I've got coming up in 2023, don't forget to hit subscribe before you go. And as always, I really appreciate you taking the time to watch, so thank you very much. And until the next video, Happy New Year! And bye.